moving higher in the 21st century. Hard-working people working hard for you and me. Moving higher, time and time again. Through the years you'll find us here. Moving higher.
Hello and welcome to Moving Iron Podcast Markets with Chip Nellinger. This edition of the Moving Iron Podcast is brought to you by Dawsontire and Wheel, your premier ag tire and wheel provider in North America, helping people grow. TractorZoom delivering insights, and Dryshod Boots, the official work boots of the Moving Iron Podcast. Chip is with Blue Reef Agri-Marketing in Morton, Illinois, and he is on weekly to sit down and talk with me about what's going on in the markets. And today is election day, and those Dryshod boots are going to come in handy to wade through all the bullshit that's coming down the way here, Chip.
That's it. That's probably a very good way of putting it. Very good way of putting it. It's going to be, it has already been crazy in a lot of ways, but this is going to be a crazy day. Mm-hmm. Maybe a crazy several days to weeks that follow, and it's going to have a very definite effect on our markets, all our markets, financial markets, grain markets, livestock markets. It already has coming up into today, and whatever the results are, not only the presidential but congressional elections are going to have a big influence on our markets. So it's going to be interesting, to say the least, for the next days to weeks ahead.
Yeah. Yep. So looking at the market right now, I mean, we're kind of down. We're down off of what those original highs were, up at around that 420 mark in the March and December contracts, and corn and beans the same way, or beans the same way. We're down off those original highs a little bit, but they've kind of fluttered around that $4 mark on the beans anyway, kind of back and forth for the last week or so, and seen some intraday volatility, but for the most part, they've kind of finished within just a few cents of where they started at, if not unchanged for the day. So, as you look at what's going on, and with such a anticipated election here coming up, what's your thoughts on the market's reaction to what you've seen so far, and how they're reacting to the overall melee of propaganda that's been coming down from high?
Yeah, I think the grain markets really act pretty well, honestly. It's really the first healthy correction that we've seen in this whole move since it really started, and that would have arguably been on the day of the August crop report is when this rally started. So, we're 3+ months into it. And so the funds had a pretty sizable long position in all the grain products going into the end of the month. I think you would have seen some of this liquidation and profit taking regardless of the election. The election probably exaggerated it some just because of the sheer uncertainty of it. Remember back 4 years, you can't believe the polls anymore. It's more propaganda than, trying to get a real answer. And so the polls are wrong. There's so much misinformation going on. I think the fund said, hey, we've got good profits made. Let's take some off the table. Let's put some of these profits in our pocket, and then if we kind of get the all clear signal after the election, we'll come back right back in, because nothing has changed fundamentally. Maybe the only thing that's changed is Brazil has kind of caught back up on their planting pace. They started late because of dry weather. They got some moisture. They've really caught back up almost to normal on their planting pace. Still very dry in Argentina. Ukraine corn crop likely is coming lower. Very dry in Russian wheat growing areas. Has been pretty dry in the plains. They did get a little bit of moisture in areas, but still overall pretty dry. Demand is still phenomenal. All through this sell-off, we've been selling corn and beans. Rumors here yesterday that Brazil took 38,000 metric tons of U.S. beans. They're out of beans. They oversold their beans to China. It's going to be a few months before they have supplies. And so it looks like they're going to import our beans. So what a crazy market we have. I think the end of the month and yesterday ahead of this election today was simply just profit taking and money flow. Now, that doesn't mean that we can't get caught up if the stock market has some big, large-scale correction, that it won't spill over and drag us lower. in our grain and livestock markets. But I think fundamentally, as long as we have some order of normalcy, no matter who wins, if it's clear cut win, no matter what side it is, I think that brings some stability to the marketplace, and I think that refocuses the market right back on, hey, we've got a crop report coming out here on the 9th. It's likely going to go lower in yields on corn. Demand's been good, and we've got some problems in different production areas of the world, and that's going to overshadow things, I think, going into winter and spring even, unless there's just some massive disruption. And I think even that would be temporary. But, all eyes will be on the stock market. If you remember back 4 years ago, the stock market had some massive volatility on election night and into the, early morning hours of the next day. That's probably going to be the case today as well. Right now, I'd say the financial markets, the outside markets, if you had to put a gun to my head as we're recording this here, right ahead of 7:30 Central Time on Tuesday morning, that the financial markets to me seem to hint that they believe Trump's going to win. I think in general, if they felt Biden was going to win, we'd be selling off harder. He's going to, very publicly increase taxes, increase capital gains taxes, tax corporations. That's negative to growth. And I think the stock market knows that. We did have a big sell-off going into it here from the highs. Not a big one, but a decent correction. But yesterday and today, so far, this market's up sharply on the stock side of the equation. And I think, crude oil is well off its lows. And I think that might be one little hint that at least the financial markets right now think that maybe Trump pulls this out, but we'll see, and it might take a while to figure that out, I guess.
Yeah. No, you watch these different news channels and what have you, and they're all over the place. I mean, it just depends on what side of the aisle they're on and as to how they report it. But there's the one thing they can't really deny is that from the amount of how much the polls have tightened over the last 3 days. They went from being like, when I was watching, like, well, it looks like Biden's going to win. He's up by 10 to 12 points, and there's no way those polls can be that wrong. To now they're like well within the margin of error. So that shows you that there's some swing coming their way. So it'll be an interesting night, no doubt about it. You can watch everything kind of unfold and see what happens, and see if anyone cries on the air again if Trump wins. So we'll see what happens.
It's gonna be interesting. I'm glad it's only every 4 years, because I don't know if we can handle it any sooner than that.
Could you imagine this was every year? Oh my God, how much of a craziness this would be. So it's crazy. All right, so let's talk about. Looks like some crop progress stuff that's coming out here. Corn is by 82% done, soybeans by 87% done, way ahead of where they've been in the year, in comparative years. I think out here where I'm at, we typically start right now, and guys are within 2 weeks of being done. So, kind of give you an idea of where we're at. Talk about that and what you think, how that is going to affect some of these November and December reports that we see coming up, when they actually have a pretty good estimation of what's been in the bin, as guys start reporting to FSA offices about the various yields they got. So do you anticipate that maybe the November or December report might actually be a bigger report than what we see coming out of the January report?
Yeah, so I do think that on this November report, they'll have some, each report that we get, starts in August and September, and each report you get a little more data. They ought to be far enough into it, they get a pretty good handle. Now, keep in mind the December report, they don't do production changes.
Okay.
So we've only got this November 9th report. We do have a December crop report, but it's only demand and world numbers. They don't change production. And then the final January crop report is when we're going to get the supposedly final, acreage, yield, and, obviously the demand can fluctuate from here on out, from January on out. But so they've got 2 more cracks at it, and they do have better data for this November report. And so I think it's going to be important to see what the trend is. If they go lower on corn yields, which is kind of a couple things, just what producers we talk to kind of say that towards the tail end, this crop dried down super fast, got probably a little drier on corn and for sure on beans than what people wanted. And that robs yield and test weight potentially on corn. And so the yield seemed to tail off towards the end of harvest here. We do every year throughout the growing season, and particularly like into fall and harvest time frame, a company-wide survey of our customers, and it would suggest that the USDA could come, 3-4 bushels lower on yields by the final report on corn. Whether they will or not, it's a small sample size. I'm not trying to, talk up, our a yield survey as, gospel, because it's a small sample size and it's just kind of a snapshot. But we believe that the USDA could come down a little bit, 2 to 4 bushels maybe on corn yields. There's some talk that possibly they could still adjust the harvested acreage down a little bit because of the windstorm situation there across Iowa and parts of Illinois and Indiana. And demand, you'd have to argue at this stage, demand could probably ration it up just a little bit. So all that goes to the bottom line, cuts carry out. And, I think it's going to be the trend more so than the actual amount. If they cut it a bushel and a half, I think the market then thinks, okay, now they're on a downward revision trend. And then by the January report, they're going to cut it even further. And that should be friendly. If they're unchanged or just fractionally lower, the market might have a tendency to think they have enough data and that things are going to kind of be on a stable path as far as yields go into January. So I think it depends on the magnitude of any changes, and then the market will then assume that that trend is going to continue into the January report. And so I think it's going to be important to watch that. I think they probably have some adjustments lower they could make on some world numbers. I don't know if that's going to shock the market, particularly Ukraine corn. They probably don't do much with South American production yet because they're early on in the growing season. But very quietly, Argentina is setting up for some issues. They are super dry right now.
Yeah.
And, they're a little bit later season than what Brazil is. So there's certainly time to get some rain and fix that. But some of the main growing areas of Argentina are really, really dry right now and not forecast for much rain. So if you see that continuing in December, we've got some bigger issues at hand. If Argentina or even parts of the Brazilian growing areas in the south return dry, that could be, some extra fuel on the fire of this big demand market we've got on the grain side.
All right, Chip, so what are your thoughts on ethanol? Oil prices have, they're down underneath $40 right now, or teetering on that $40 mark anyway, I guess. And, we haven't quite rebounded back from the March and April shutdown to the full, 8.5 to 9.5 million barrels of oil a day that we used for gasoline, those kind of things. So I guess as you look at ethanol, where it's at right now based on the price of corn and overall demand, I guess, what's your thoughts on ethanol and what do you see happening there?
Well, that's a multifaceted question. So a week and a half ago, we had crude oil trading about $41 a barrel. Mm-hmm. Started kind of talking about the possibility of the majority of Europe shutting down again because of a resurgence in COVID. And you saw crude oil, even yesterday morning, trade sub $34. It's since bounced back to about $38. So on the one hand, you've got some very real fears about, global, demand on the gasoline side being pummeled again because of shutdowns. On the other hand, here domestically, it seems like we're cranking along a little bit. And that's a multifaceted thing too. You've got soy meal prices have had a big rally. I think that's helped firm up the DDG market. and add a little bit of profitability or at least some margin that wasn't there 6 months ago on the ethanol side. I think the demand's pretty good. Seems like that we're pretty well balanced as far as production and and the demand side on the ethanol side. There's talk that China has really been snooping hard for U.S. DDGs and or ethanol. There's been no confirmation of that yet, but that's a little bit of a game changer. So there's a lot of conflicting, issues there. Certainly, future shutdowns, no matter how long they last, are going to have, a major influence on gasoline demand across the world. So that's the one side of the equation. The other side is it seems like, barring that, that we've kind of recovered pretty nicely and at least holding things together on the ethanol side. So it may come down a little bit to, how long does Europe shut down? Supposed to be, they're talking like maybe a month. Does a month turn into 3? Does it last till April? Are they even going to get shut down? There's lots of protests out there of citizens that don't want that. So that there's a little bit of more than a little bit of uncertainty out there regarding the path that these COVID shutdowns are going to take across the world, and that's certainly going to be a big driver in energy demand from at least gasoline standpoint and diesel standpoint.
Right on. Well, Chip, good stuff as usual. Plenty of stuff to pay attention to here. It's going to be a crazy day. I can't say anything else other than that. So, if folks want to reach out,
it really is, Casey. Yeah. It's going to be interesting. I don't know how fun it's going to be, but there is a potential for massive volatility. So keep your head on a swivel, as they say, I guess.
Yeah, it's going to be nuts. And the other thing too is what my biggest fear is, Trump wins and all these places decide they're going to go torch the the local neighborhood again, like they've been doing here for the last forever, last 100 days or whatever, 3 months, whatever it's been that they've been doing these things. And my thing is that fires back up, and then mid-January when inauguration comes back around, what happens then? You have another opportunity for this stuff to go crazy. So I don't know. It's going to be we live in some interesting times, I guess is the best way to put it. We do, and sometimes you need those to kind of get back on the right foot. And we're certainly in a challenging time, and it's going to be interesting to see how we come out of this, because there's a lot of issues out there. No matter what side of the fence you're on, there's some big structural issues out there that need fixed, and the world is further apart. At least I shouldn't say the world. The United States seems like it's further apart than ever. So I don't know what comes of that, but it's a little bit scary. So we will see. Hopefully, calmer heads prevail over the coming days and weeks. I hope you're right. So, well, Jeff, folks, I'll reach out to you, pick your brain about what's going on, and just see what Blue Reef can do for them. What's the best way to do that?
Yeah, best way is just call our office, 309-550-7213. We'd love to chat with you about your risk management plan. Price action in the last few months proves it's more important than ever to have a plan and be able to execute that plan in the midst of volatility. So we'd love to chat with you.
Right on. I am Casey Seymour with Moving Iron Podcast. Make sure you check me out on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. That's where you're going to find the latest editions of the Moving Iron Podcast. Also, check out movingironllc.com for the latest information about the Moving Iron Summit coming up here January 20th through the 22nd in Nashville, Tennessee. That will be at the Renaissance Hotel downtown. All the information about the meeting is on the website, and as well as how to register as well. If you'd like to just reach out to me and get more information about what that is, hit me up at Moving Iron Podcast at movingironpodcast.com, and I'll be happy to give you all the information you need about it. Check out the Global Ag Network and the great podcasters there. Check out the Dryline Farmer Podcast with Brent and Landon. Those two guys make you laugh as you're doing your work for the day. So with that, I am Casey Seymour, Chip Nellinger. Let's go move some iron, folks. Out.
Moving higher in the 21st century. Hard-working people working hard for you and me. Moving higher, time and time again. Through the years you'll find us here.